Gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the second edition of the Devy WarZone. I am your host, Gerald Matthew Sinclair. Some of you out there may know me as the man of the hour and the man with the power. Others, Jerry. Randy has other nicknames that I am not at liberty to talk about on this podcast, but we are back. And oh my God, we have watched football since the last time we talked. Now, I am easily the worst person that is going to be talking throughout the entirety of this podcast. So without further ado, I'm going to start introducing my better thirds. It's not better quarters because Josh is out there enjoying vacation because he is spoiled and lives that good life. Something that I wish I could do. But the next man that I'm going to bring up is none other than the person that is probably the reason you have James Robinson on your dynasty roster, unless you were one of those people that just picked him up week one, or you waited until the sleeper update just told you to do it, and then you had to scramble. None other than Shane P. Hallam, the man who is a dynasty and Devy analyst for Fake Pigskin. He is an NFL draft analyst at DraftSite, and he is the co-host of the Devy Marketplace. Mr. Hallam, what is poppin', my friend?
I'm happy to be back. I appreciate the James Robinson love. It was here on the WarZone where I really threw that out there for the first time. So I'm happy to be back. Happy to talk some Devy, and it's going to be a fun night.
Listen, me and Randy have been pimping that out. I really, for everybody, for the last week or 2 weeks or so, because it's well deserved. Because I didn't know who the hell the man was. I don't think most people knew who the hell he was, except for freaks who do 100-round drafts like you guys. Speaking of you guys, the other man, the man who will eat spicy chips and then compare them to a Devy analyst, the co-host of the Devy Diet, which we will see in the future, don't you worry, and the host and the OG of the Devy Marketplace, and my personal friend also fierce rival, Mr. Row the Boat himself, Kane Fussell at Devy_Kane. What is going on, brother?
Hi. God, how are you?
See, he hits you with, he's like a sweet teddy bear. Sometimes he's a bully and he just pokes me in the side until I react, and other times he's so sweet like that.
Yeah, we're just happy. We got a I wouldn't say a full week of college football, right? But we got, we'll call it like a 3/5 week, right? Because we got 3 out of the top Power 5 conferences. But then we got news that not only are we getting the Big Ten back, we're getting the Pac-12 back. And just because somehow the Mountain West thinks they're part of this whole Power 5 conference deal, they're like, oh, we're going to come back too. So we're getting close to seeing everyone back, and it's finally going to be what a real college football week was supposed to be. Just with less fans and a little more distance between people, which distance between people is something that the Louisville defense does really, really well.
It'll actually be the same number of people inside Spartan Stadium, so that'll be nothing new for me this fall.
Smart.
But, and listen, until we get Maction on a Wednesday night, it's really not a complete football season. But, gentlemen,
bless up. Anything for some Maction. Shane knows how I feel about the Mac.
Oh, God. Don't get him started, please.
So the Mac is like that one bag, like the last bag of potato chips that you got, right? Like, it's not the greatest, but when it's the only one you got, what do you compare it to? And that's what the Mac is, right? During the week, Mac's the only one playing. So you're like, yeah, this is good football. Compared to other football, is it that good? Probably not. But it's better than nothing. Hell, watch how many people just watched the Jaguars versus the Dolphins. And you're going to tell me that a bunch of people won't just watch the Mac during the week? Get out of here.
No, I mean, the next Thursday game is like the Broncos and somebody bad, too. I don't remember exactly who it is. Yeah.
Broncos,
there's some thrilling. That's even worse than Maction. Good God.
I think there would be a lot of Mac players playing.
Yeah, there you go. So we're just going to, we're going to get into it in a little bit here. just to go over sort of what we're doing. We're going to do this once a month. We're going to start just talking, some BS. We're starting to see some football. We're just going to talk about the football that we've seen. What we think, just some generic football talk, sort of get people into Devy. Don't be intimidated. Guys that knew about James Robinson 4 months before you did, they're scary. Shane's a scary man. So we don't want to do that. We just want to get you guys interested because it's fun to know these. And the reason we bring it up so much about the whole James Robinson thing is because that's awesome. Like, I know that's a good feeling, Shane. Like, I know it is. The moment that man became relevant for everybody, and me and Brandy are just stroking that ego as fiercely and hard as we can. Kane, don't get excited. Don't get excited.
I did not like that analogy. That one was rough.
Sorry, I take it down to a weird place. I can't help it. This is why Randy doesn't let me host the regular.
I believe you
WarZone.
took it up. You didn't take it down. You took it up.
Okay, weird. All right. And then we're just going to talk about Dynasty players. Guys like me who just want to get better at Dynasty because sometimes we draft bad guys, and I want guys like you two who know every person that even breathes and also wears a jersey, from 7th graders on, up until, Jonathan Taylor and the Clyde Edwards-Hilairs of the world. And then we're just going to round it out. I'm going to let you guys just spitball on all the crazy names, and I'm going to write them down, and I'm not going to have any idea who any of them are, but it's just that way we can hit sort of every little bit of the Devy world. I don't want to scare people, but I also don't want to bore people that like Devy, so I'm going to let you guys just do what you do. So the news that we heard, the news that all of us are excited about because we are all Big Ten people. We got some Buckeyes. We got Row the Boat. I'm a self-hating, awful Spartan fan who is not entirely looking forward to the fact that we actually have to play football and win 3 games this year. Maybe. Gentlemen, Kane, what are you looking forward to? How excited are you that you're actually going to get to see your boys? Is Rashad Bateman going to play? That's another thing. You probably know that situation better than me. I know he's trying to get back or something, and there's some shenanigans afoot. That's what I'll call it.
Yeah, so just starting with Rashad Bateman, I think there's a really good chance that he plays. He's currently practicing with the Gophers. So really the thought, right, is that technically he has to be cleared by the NCAA because he did sign an agent, but it's not like he accepted any money or got anything from the agent. So it's basically like, oh, I didn't think there was a season, so I just signed an agent. But the NCAA more than anything wants money. And like Shane and I talked on the Devy Marketplace, is that the Gophers are probably like the 4th or 5th biggest school in the Big Ten. So they're not going to try to hurt those chances, especially on a program that's really on the rise. So I tend to think that Rashad Bateman is going to play, and they are going to allow him to play, just because you can use the unforeseen circumstances, right? Like if the players were getting the idea from the coaches and the trainers and everyone that the Big Ten wasn't going to have football, and then he went out and just signed an agent, well, this is different circumstances. This has never happened before, right? We've never had a pandemic partially shut down part of a college football season and basically change everything about how we've looked at college football so far. So I think first he's going to play, and then second is what is it going to look like for the Big Ten playing? And I think the schedule is kind of murky because I think there's a really good chance that the college playoff committee ends up pushing back their date as to when they're going to announce the Final Four, right, for the college football playoffs, just because, right, they're going to want to see the Big Ten championship game because there's one really, really good team in the Big Ten, and to keep them out of the college football playoffs due to everything going on, especially when we've already seen 2 or 3 top 10 teams lose. I think it's pretty much at a no-brainer that you kind of have to wait, as Shane just happens to drink from from an Ohio State glass. Like, oh no, was that me that did that? Like, but yeah, Ohio State, I think, ends up getting into the college football playoff, barring some crazy loss. And I think they could even still get in with a loss to Penn State. But I think the most fun thing is Nebraska's schedule. Because they have to face every hard team in the Big Ten.
And that's what they get for complaining the whole time.
So this is the way I see it. So I put on Twitter, right, it's Nebraska. We just want to play. Also Nebraska. It's not fair that we have to face every hard team in the Big Ten. And so everyone from Nebraska gets mad that they have to, that their crossover games are Penn State and Ohio State. But guess what? They were before. Like, those were the games from the East you were supposed to play anyways. So why are you all of a sudden making a fuss about it? Like, that's not up to them. Like, I don't know. But, we're just happy to have football back. Nebraska might win one game. So Scott Frost still not a good coach. And that's kind of where we're at in Big Ten land.
What about your boys? Talk about the up and comers. As much as I like to bullshit with you about the Gophers, they smell of Mark D'Antonio early 2010s, just on the rise program. Talk about your guys. Talk about some of the other guys. I mean, we know about Rashad Bateman. Talk about anybody else that you think is potentially dynasty or Devy relevant, and then just how you think your guys are going to look this year.
Well, I think the big difference between PJ Fleck and whatever happened at Michigan State is that PJ Fleck's not doing any recruiting violations, but we'll just hold that for another day, Jerry. But I think the Gophers are going to look good. You have a returning quarterback in Tanner Morgan, who was incredibly efficient, probably more efficient than people thought he was going to be. You add in most of the offensive line returning. The entire offensive line's returning. Then you still have Rashad Bateman, still have Chris Ottman-Bell. He's just going to be the number 2. He's going to be probably taking over that slot role for Tyler Johnson. So getting a good amount of those targets. And the defense is going to be a little worse for wear. We know that. But defense doesn't win games in college football anymore. Offense wins games. So, as long as the Gophers can continue to score and be putting up, right? You guys know as well as I do, you guys love the Big Ten. If Gophers are putting up 30 points a game, there's going to be a lot of wins. It's hard to put up 30 and lose in the Big Ten. So, that's just kind of the plan. So I think, we lost so many players on the defensive side of the ball. But it's going to be really interesting to see what happens at the running back position. Obviously, we have Mo Ibrahim, who's going to be taking the lion's share of the carries. But don't forget about my boy Kai Thomas. I've been talking to him a little bit, and he's just jazzed to get on the football field. So can't wait to see what he does. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year from Kansas. Ended up with over 4,000 rushing yards and 70 touchdowns in his high school career. So some crazy stats. And I don't think any of the other running backs really have a chance to really make a dent in this roster. So really excited for what the Gophers are doing. It's looking like the same thing again. Who's going to win between those games with Wisconsin and Iowa to see who's going to make the Big Ten championship?
And Mr. Shane, the guy that watches the team that has the cream that rises to the top. Listen, the Buckeyes got everybody. The Buckeyes always got everybody. Talk about them. We all know about Justin Fields. We know your team's good. Give us some stuff. Talk some shit. Do what you got to do, my man. Y'all deserve it.
I think it'll be a good year, but I think there is some uncertainty and
humble. This man is lying, and he is being too nice. He knows they are going
it'll be a good
kick
year.
The piss out of everybody this whole year. Stop it.
Look,
I think it'll be a good year. Get out of here.
But I think when we talk about like Devy players, right? I mean, we've had the Ohio State's kind of had a run of running backs, and I think that's a piece that's uncertain, right? Trey Sermon's coming in from Oklahoma, transferring. Master Teague has not really lived up to expectations, and Ohio State's kind of holding out for a year till they get to two dynamic 5-star freshman recruits at running back in a year. So, I'm interested to see if either of these players, if Sermon or Teague, can kind of come out of the woodwork, have a really good year. Sermon, if he can stay healthy, it's been his big issue. I think you could have either of them could be Devy relevant with a really good season. And then I still think Chris Olave, the wide receiver, number one, who ran the wrong route in the national championship, lost that game for them.
Excuse me, it wasn't a national championship. Just a semifinal.
I'm sorry, and then the playoff, right?
You didn't make it to the championship.
Should have made it to the championship. But ran that wrong route, cost the game. Is one of the most underrated Devy players out there right now. I mean, he has the speed, he has the athletic ability. Ohio State is vacating 100 catches this season, are all in the NFL. So, he's going to get more of that. And I had just released a 7-round mock draft on Draft Site for 2021, and I have him at the back end of the first round. I think he can be that kind of player. So I think he's one of those Devy guys to keep an eye on when the Big Ten comes back. If he's Justin Fields' favorite target, he's going to be great. And then they have a ton of receivers, that young guys that have Devy talent. Garrett Wilson, 5-star receiver who's a true sophomore next year, started to show some really great things athletically, making some tough catches. I think he's going to be the number 2 and really come on. And then they had a trio of receivers coming in, and Julian Fleming, 5-star, Jackson Smith-Njigba, 5-star, and G. Scott, 4-star. So all three of those guys should get the opportunity to play. They should be kind of the next 3 up, along with Mookie Cooper, another 4-star receiver. So there's a lot of young receiving talent there. And honestly, the other thing I'll say is I think that the tight end position for them is one of the most overrated Devy players out there is Jeremy Ruckert, who just has not really performed, is still the number 2 behind Luke Farrell. And so I think he's one of those guys to stay away from. But yeah, look, Ohio State should run away with the conference. I'll say I have a sleeper team that I think is going to be up toward the top. Maryland. I think Maryland is going to win a ton of games in the Big Ten this year and compete. Talia Tagovailoa, they have Dante Demas at receiver, Raheem Jarrett coming in. Maryland's going to be good, and then they're going to pull a couple upsets in here.
Throw some respect on Penny Boone, Shane.
Listen, that's going to drop Michigan State's wins from 3 down to 2 if Maryland does end up doing things. So that's just freaking great.
Well, if they give you a 3, just hit the under. Not a big deal.
So we already talked about some of the big guys. I mean, we don't need to talk about Justin Fields. We know he's probably going to be, 102 in most leagues, maybe 101, depending where he lands. We talked about Rashad Bateman, Kane's boy. Rondo Moore is also coming back. Shane, who are some of the other guys, maybe not the guys that we hear about in the Big Ten, some of these guys that are going to go, going to be second-round dynasty prospects? Even mention a Devy guy if you need to. They could sort of, come in and be relevant. Some guys that we haven't heard of, but we could see them going into the 2020 draft class. And, we're with, what is today? We got less than a month before the Big Ten kicks off. Set me up. Give me a foundation for success, baby.
Well, I mentioned Olave. He's a big guy for me. I think there's other receivers that could end up emerging if they have a good year. And Nico Collins, the receiver from Michigan, he's a player. Michigan is really bad at developing talent, and it sucks for Dynasty of how bad they are. But with Tariq Black gone, Donovan Peoples-Jones gone, Nico Collins has been the most productive receiver there, even with NFL talent. Now that NFL talent's gone, I think he could have a really big year. New quarterback, Joe Milton, I think is going to be very good at Michigan this season. So Nico Collins could be a breakout guy. And then I mentioned Dante Demas from Maryland. If Talia Tagovailoa, Tua's brother, really excels there, then I think Demas is that player. He has a little bit of DJ Moore in him. I don't think he's that good, but he has a little bit of that, the fast speed, really good acceleration, gets off the line quickly. He just played for a really crappy team. And so sometimes those guys you don't really get to see until late. I think he could be one of those players that emerges. So there's a couple. I'll leave. I'll leave Kane his favorite Penn State running back that he can talk about, because I think he'll want to do that.
Thank you.
I
didn't know what I wanted to say right away.
Always with the patience with Kane.
Okay, so Journey Brown, right? So if we're looking at the top running backs, right, there seems to be, we have a top 2 to 3, right, for most people, that you might call consensus. Etienne, Najee Harris from Alabama, and then Chuba Hubbard out of Oklahoma State. But one person that people need to start talking about more is Journey Brown. Is the running back at Penn State, and he just is really good. Like, a lot of people seem to not give him the proper respect that he deserves, and it makes absolutely no sense to me. He didn't really come on until about game 7, I believe it was, against the Gophers. But he ended up averaging just under 7 yards a carry and 12 touchdowns. If you really want to see a good display of his pure talent and his pure power, take a look at when they faced Memphis in the bowl game. He was absolutely terrific. The thing that's really nice is we have a clear idea as to what his offensive system is going to be. They do have a new offensive coordinator, but his offensive coordinator came from Minnesota. It's Kirk Shiraka, which is the same offensive coordinator that was at Western Michigan with PJ Fleck and came to Minnesota. So we know what Kirk Shiraka, the offense, is going to look like. It's going to be a lot of outside zone, and believe it or not, that's kind of the strength of Journey Brown. He's a one-cut runner, and he has power when he's hitting the second level. So he's going to absolutely destroy. The thing I want to watch the most is, what does he look like against NFL caliber talent, which is Ohio State? What does he look like against Ohio State? Is he going to be stood up as soon as he hits the second level, or is he going to continue to be able to run through that second level like he did starting from the game against the Gophers on through the rest of the season? He has to be in conversation with a guy that's going to be the fourth running back. It's really hard to imagine a time where Journey Brown fails so badly this year, where he goes up for the draft and isn't a day 1 or day 2 pick. Shane, where did you have him in your most recent mock draft that you just put out, that 7th rounder?
I think I had him in the 3rd round. If I remember correctly, I ended up settling on him there because I like you said, I think with the Big Ten coming back, that was, to me, like, okay, now he can show out. That's what we were waiting for. We're waiting for kind of that one breakout season that we saw with Miles Sanders. He was already starting it, last year. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I pulled it up. I had him 3rd round, 69th overall to the Washington football team. So, which
would be a terrific landing spot in my eyes, because he catches the ball really, really well. Probably the other guy I would mention in the Big Ten, since I probably shouldn't talk about any other Gophers. Not that I don't want to, but I probably just shouldn't. Is a Devy guy, is wide receiver David Bell for Purdue. And I think the only reason why I think he's worth bringing up, so analytics people love him right now, right? The whole thing about the percentage of the team's receiving yards that he has, incredibly high. Sure. But that didn't start happening until Rondale Moore got hurt against Minnesota. So I want to see what he looks like on a field with Rondale Moore. We know that Purdue peppers their number 1 receiver early and often. So I would assume that's still going to be Rondale Moore, because Rondale Moore is just better. But I want to see how David Bell looks. Is he still going to be able to get a huge portion of those targets? And I think if he doesn't, I think that sets it up for a huge buy if you're playing Devy, just because if he's not getting the targets, people are going to think there's something wrong with him. But in all reality, targets, as Peter Howard would say, targets just go to the better players. Like, that's the analytics, that targets go to just better players on the field. So, he's going to get less targets with Rondale Moore out there, and I doubt that he's going to be able to put anything near what he did last year, because Rondale Moore is just too good.
I mean, Peter Howard would say it with a fantastic British accent and sound a little better than you, but I appreciate it. I want to bring up one guy because I have been shitting on my Spartans, and they had one guy that at least had a little bit of a pulse.
We talking about Elijah Collins?
I am. Josh brought him up also, wanting to talk about him. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here. So Shane, talk to me about Elijah Collins. Give me just a little hope, just a little something that maybe we can take down. Like, we should have Rutgers week 1. Maybe we could take down Northwestern or something with him.
I was really impressed with Elijah Collins last year. I mean, I thought he was the bright spot for the team. Averaging about 4.5 yards a carry. I think he dominated the teams that he was supposed to dominate, right? Illinois, Rutgers, Western Michigan. I mean, he had those huge games, and then the Ohio State game, I thought he played pretty well, kind of grinded out some yards. So he's intriguing. He's draft eligible this year. He's a redshirt sophomore. I don't think he'll declare. I just don't think the offense will be good enough. What I really want to see is him play better against better defenses. I thought he really struggled against Penn State. I thought he really struggled against Wisconsin. The whole offense did. And, it's tough when you don't have a great offensive line, which he doesn't. But that's intriguing. The other thing that I think he'll do at the NFL level is catch the football. I think he's a really natural hands catcher, gets into space really well, and I think he does some good damage. He has to do a little bit better after the catch, and I'd like to see just a little bit more explosion from him ultimately, maybe even lose a little bit of weight. If he gets down to 210, I think he'd be a lot quicker. So I think Elijah Collins is going to be a work in progress. He's someone I have ranked right now the 23rd running back in this class. And obviously in 2022 would be much higher. And a lot of these guys are going to go back to school, including him. So he's probably the bright spot for Michigan State, and hopefully the offense runs through.
Kane, do you have anything nice to say with that gorgeous Scott Fishbowl 9 t-shirt that you're wearing right now? He's shaking his head no. All right, never mind.
I wouldn't say I have nice things to say. Well, Shane
say the mean ones then.
Shane basically touched on everything, right? It was rough sledding for him against teams that have pure NFL talent in the Big Ten, and that's to be expected when your offensive line's dookie, right? You can only do so much.
Whole team, but yeah.
Well, I was just focusing on the 5 up front. We can talk about the whole team if you want to, about how bad they are. And
absolutely not.
Let's hold that for another day when they lose to Rutgers.
I'm not doing this show if they lose to Rutgers. Randy's behind the glass. Randy's going to have to take over.
Yeah, so, I think the offense has to go through him if they think they're going to have any success. That's really all it boils down to for Michigan State.
I don't even really know who the quarterback's going to be. But does Nico Collins drop in your rankings knowing that he doesn't like tomatoes? Because he is actually a pretty standard regular at the place where I work, and he always gets a chicken club with no tomatoes. Does that drop him in your rankings for either of you? I feel like Kane, as a food man, I don't know if you're a tomato guy.
I know what they are. I think that's the first thing. I do know what tomatoes are. If I talk about food a lot, but I'm always one of those guys, don't yuck somebody else's yum.
No, he's a super nice dude, and he's so much bigger than you think he actually is. It makes sense that he can manhandle some corners.
He would probably be drafted higher if he went anywhere other than Michigan, but
yeah, except for Michigan State.
He's just Michigan just destroys recruits.
They do, and they. I mean, Shea Patterson was a problem too, but I mean, the dude scored 2 touchdowns against Ohio State a few years ago. He made
look
the
at
jump
what
ball
Tariq
catch
Black is doing against Texas, right? Look what Tariq Black has done with Texas so far. He never would have been able to do that against with Michigan, and Michigan's getting ready to lose week 1. So
Oh God, this is the talk I'm actually here for. All right, before we
they
get
face
on
the
any
Gophers.
more, I know. Before we get down any more anti-Michigan talk, we have actually seen games. There was literally games. There has been games, but there was the SEC that started this past Saturday, and as much as I would like to poop on the SEC, they have been the premier talented conference over, I don't know, 15 years since the Tim Tebow era started, really. Shane, what have you seen from the guys that were draft eligible that we saw? Hold on, let me pull my list out here. We had a
I'm just gonna let me just make one
talk
comment.
about Kyle Trask? Is that what we're gonna do right now?
We will, but I just want to let you know that only that 7 SEC teams lost their season opener. That's the highest mark since the conference's inception in 1932. Hashtag overrated.
When they all play each other, that's great.
Hey, we take the stats when we can get them.
This guy hitting you with some football dad jokes.
All right. I got 3 things.
Please.
3 things from this past weekend.
Let me get the pen out. All right.
Number one, I think by far for me is Jalen Waddle, wide receiver for Alabama. Absolutely dominated Missouri. 8 catches, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. I tweeted this. I think I talked about it on the Devy Marketplace too. I think there's a non-0% chance he's the first receiver off the board in the 2021 NFL draft. He's Henry Ruggs, but a lot better. He actually plays receiver. And so he's playing that role better than we've seen a receiver play that role in a long time. So I think Jalen Waddle is a guy that you need to be on, that is going to be a stud. I really think he's going to be a stud in the NFL. He has the speed and he has the receiver talent. He's kind of that. I feel like he's Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs rolled into one, and now he's going to have the production. Number 2 is Mississippi State and Mike Leach upset LSU. And one of my big questions with Mississippi State was running back Kylan Hill. I really was like, I don't think he's a great fit for this offense. And I don't know. And look, he ran 7 times for 34 yards, and that's what he did really well. He was a really good runner. And now they turn him into a receiver. He caught 8 passes, 158 yards, and a touchdown against LSU's defense. Kylan Hill is a guy that's moving up for me. He's doing things that he wasn't asked to do before. He went back to school. A lot of people thought he would declare. This is a guy that ran for over 1,300 yards last season, only had 18 catches. He already has 2/3. He already has a third of that in one game. So he's showing that versatility. You put together last year's tape, and if this continues, he's going to be a top 5 running back in this class. And then I know Kane doesn't like to talk tight ends, but I think tight end has been one of the shining points of the first few weeks. Our top guy is Brevin Jordan out of Miami, who has consistently been a part of why this Miami team is the Miami of old again. He's already caught 15 passes, 212 yards, 3 touchdowns, dominated Louisville. They used him in numerous ways at Florida State. He's a big receiver playing tight end. That's what you want in Dynasty, right? That's what you want to have. You want a guy that's going to catch passes. Florida, Kyle Pitts, and we can talk Kyle Trask as well. But Kyle Pitts, 8 catches, 170 yards. He just put on a performance. He's by far
and hit pay dirt 4 effing times too.
That's good. And man, these top 3 tight ends, we can toss in Pat Fryermuth from Penn State when he starts playing. It's going to be the best high-end tight end class in a long time. And depending on how your league, if you start 2 or it's tight end premium, I think this is the year to invest.
I think one really important thing that Shane said there is he only mentioned tight ends in tight end premium leagues. It's so hard to not stress enough that if you're in a standard league that has no tight end premium, why are you wasting Devy picks or early rookie picks on a tight end? It doesn't make sense. So that's just the first thing. I'm a known tight end hater.
I like it.
Well, that's.
I get it. I see what you're saying.
and so many people want to take, Kyle Pitts and Brevin Jordan with like a third round Devy pick. But, I'd rather take Jerry and Ely if Jerry and Ely has a chance to be a top 5 running back in the 2022 draft versus Kyle Pitts or
And
Brevin
where
Jordan.
does Jerry and Ely play?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, thank you.
We'll get to the Ole Miss Florida game in just a hair, because there's about 4 guys that I really, really like in that game. But I think
just get into it, because I know you're a big Trask guy, and that he went bananas.
Yeah, so Kyle Trask is my quarterback 4. He was before. I enjoyed all the hate that I got for saying that he was better than Jamie Newman before the season. And look where we are now, Dad. Like, like look at where we are. Like, he's so much better. And let's not forget that before, when he came in to relieve a hurt Felipe Franks, that he hadn't started a game since his freshman year in high school. And he comes in to do it as a junior. So it hadn't started in 6 years and leads the Florida Gators to a top 10 team. And then now comes out and throws for over 400 yards and 6 touchdowns with 0 picks and just making just good decisions overall. I think that's one of the bonuses that you're going to get about Kyle Trask, is that he's just not going to make the poor decisions. He might not have as strong of an arm as, your Trevor Lawrence, your Trey Lance, your Justin Fields, but he's always going to make the right decision. And he might not be a plus matchup in a lot of games, but he's going to make sure that he's not going to be the reason your NFL team loses, which I think is a really big point as well. But the other guys that are worth talking about in this game, though, Jerry and Ely, my man, Jerry and Ely. Florida's a really good defense, and they have a really good defensive line, and their linebackers. I think Shane watched this game too, and their linebackers were just flying around. They were fast, and their cornerbacks were tackling well anytime you tried to bounce it outside. So Jerry and Ely still being able to get 3 catches, along with, just under 5 yards per carry on the ground, and did bust off an 18-yard run. So he's incredibly skilled. But I think actually one of the best weapons on that Ole Miss team right now is Elijah Moore. And Elijah Moore did everything for that team. 10 receptions, 227 yards. Never got in the end zone, but he was just everywhere you needed him to be, whether it was a go route, whether it was a dagger route, just 15 and in, whether it was a curl, whether it was just slants over the middle. Like, Elijah Moore was the guy. He was almost like Shi Smith at the start of that South Carolina game, where all they did was throw to Shi Smith for the whole first drive and a half. But yeah, man, Elijah Moore's just good. That's the analysis. Like, he's going to get drafted. He's just #good.
So Randy has this thing where he always likes the quarterback that everybody else hates. It's always like the QB3 or the QB4. And it's always like, it's the guy that sneaks up on you and gets relevant. It's the Josh Allens. It's the Justin Herberts. It's Daniel Jones. There's always somebody that everyone wants to just shit on, and he always just scoops him up. Who do you guys think that is going to be in this class? Is it Kyle Trask? Is it someone like, KJ Costello played okay. He threw for a hell of a ton of yards. So I didn't happen to see that game. He's the quarterback from Mississippi State, transferred from Stanford. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
Yep.
So who do you guys think that guy could be, so Randy can just write that down while he's listening behind the glass currently?
Look, I think Trask has kind of put himself in that pole position. I think for QB3, assuming Trey Lance goes back to school. I think the other guy, not to go back to the Big Ten, but I think Tanner Morgan is going to be someone that is in possible position for that. He had such a good year last season, and if Bateman comes back, I think he has such a good throwing motion that the NFL is going to really like it if he puts up numbers. And I think Costello is going to be in that conversation. If he keeps doing this, he's by far the most talented quarterback that Mike Leach has ever had. And no one has ever
take that, Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, let's be real. Like, KJ Costello is more talented than Gardner Minshew is in terms of arm talent. I'm not going to say in the NFL, but in terms of arm talent, and no one's ever thrown for 600 yards in the SEC before, like in a game ever. and it's his first
He
game.
did it in his first game.
like this offense is going to be bananas. So, if you have someone in that offense with those numbers, putting up numbers, I think it's going to be hard for NFL teams to say we don't want to take a chance on this guy. So I think those three right now are kind of the competition to me for QB3 if Lance goes back to school. And I don't know the other guys, Brock Purdy, no, Jamie Newman, no, Sam Ehlinger, no. I think those are the three right now.
Any disagreement with that, Kane?
No, I think he's right on. I think I'm gonna switch to just a running back talk because Shane and I haven't talked about this game yet, and it's Zamir White. I can't even talk right now. Zeus against Arkansas. He plays for Georgia, and he just looked really, really good. He was just solid. He gets all the yards you want him to get. Doesn't really make poor decisions when it comes to his vision. Which, if only we could give that vision to Chuba Hubbard and just go from there, maybe we would actually have a good, a top running back. But I digress. But Zamir White, man, just looked solid. He's just a good player. And I don't know if he's going to come out this year. I think he needs to have some really, really big games for him to really get drafted. Anything
you think
before
that's just because he missed the year because he had an ACL or something, right? So he missed.
He's
a year.
torn his ACL twice.
Okay.
And he was getting some of the work behind DeAndre Swift, but at the same point, I think you need him to have some really big games. He only ran the ball 13 times, and I know that's a staple
of the
Georgia. Yeah, it's a staple of the Georgia offense, but at the same point, like he doesn't catch the ball a lot out of the backfield. So if you're trying to comp him to other Georgia running backs, it's just tough sledding. So I think right now he's pretty firm in that day 3 category if he comes out this year. And I would assume that Shane has him almost at the same juncture in that day 3 talk. But he's got to have just some monster games against really, really good teams if he's really going to have some success.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's funny because I bashed him on our last podcast. I was like, Zamir White, I think he's overrated. He's not going to do anything. Then he comes out and has that big game. So, yeah, I had him in the 6th round of my mock before that game. I probably would take him up to the 5th, and we'll see what happens from there.
Kane, have you seen anybody so far that has just underwhelmed? That maybe you thought was going to take a step or they needed to continue it and they have just shit the bed?
Yeah, I'll attack a Twitter darling, which is Rakeem Boyd, running back. He's a sophomore right now, or is he not a sophomore? I can't remember. There's so many names. He's a senior.
The kid from Last Chance U.
Yeah.
Is.
So he just had a rough game. 11 carries for 21 yards. I know it's against Georgia, but there were just some times where the vision just didn't add up. And he probably could have gotten a few more yards. He didn't have to average just under 2 yards a carry. Could have done a little bit better. And especially in the first half, I thought in the first half, Arkansas was actually a better team than Georgia in the first half. And they were moving the ball pretty well. And then, then Georgia turned it on. Yeah. Well, I think Georgia more was like, yeah, we should actually try because we're losing. Because Georgia only scored 5 points in the first half.
Yeah,
they were down 7-5, so they were even down 10-5, and then then they scored just the rest of the game. But I think Rakeem Boyd, I have a hard time even seeing him getting drafted right now. Sure, he had a great season last year, but it's rough right now. So that's one guy that probably underwhelmed me.
You got anybody that just you didn't love?
Yeah, let's talk about Samorian Terry, wide receiver for Florida State, right?
I just took him in the 2nd round.
Yeah, well, he's not going to be going to the 2nd round of the NFL draft. I'll tell you that.
Great! What a surprise! I'm shit at this game.
Way to zing him.
I mean, look, Florida State is so bad. I mean, they're just so bad.
So bad.
He had 6 catches in that first game against Georgia Tech. had a really nice catch. It was like, oh, okay, maybe. Let's talk about his stat line in the Miami game: 0 catches, 0 yards, 1 rush, -4 yards rushing. This is going to be his year, and I don't think you can declare that if he keeps playing like this, if Florida State is getting blown out. It's just really unfortunate, kind of, that all this happened and there's limited games, because he's the kind of guy that probably would do really well against bad defenses and show the talent. And it's, hey, okay, maybe the team around him is just so bad that he's good, and that's probably true. But I mean, you can't get blanked against Miami if you're the best player. Like, the team should put the ball in your hands. And so he was a guy I was already a little trepidatious on. Just he's not dominant. And now, I mean, I think he'll go in the third day of the NFL draft if he declares, unless he has I don't think he's going to have a great workout. I don't think he's this athletic stud either, and that's a problem.
So we've got Equinemius St. Brown. We have found that guy.
Don't worry, his brother's in this draft.
Yeah, his brother might be that guy, actually. We'll see how the Pac-12 goes.
Yeah,
because everyone loves drafting just purely slot guys.
That's the USC kid.
Yeah, Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra, named after the Egyptian sun god. All right, gentlemen. Me and Randy did this bit on the WarZone, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and was it a camp hit or a camp bullshit? Coaches were talking, everybody, depth charts were coming out. I wanted to know if it was a real thing or if they were just talking and it was just some bullshit. So we are going to adapt that to this, because a very wise and powerful man, the guy I was actually just talking about, at DWZ Memphis, Randall Young himself, he wanted to know that he's been hearing about how these 2021 picks are going to be extremely valuable to have, and these are the ones you're going to be wanting, and this 2022 draft class is lacking. So is this just the younger class not getting enough opportunity, or is there actually something to this, and the talent there really is just not something that just tickles your fancy? So, Shane, is this a Twitter hit, or is this just some more Twitter bullshit that we hear over and over again?
I mean, I've gotten in enough Twitter fights over this question, and gotten yelled at by people in the industry. I don't think 2021 is great outside of the first round. I think the first round of your rookie draft is going to be really good. We have a stud running back in Travis Etienne from Clemson. We have guys like Journey Brown and Najee Harris that can really emerge. We have a really good top end receivers: Jamar Chase, Rashad Bateman, Jalen Waddle, Rondale Moore. But I think the second round is going to be the tight ends. Is going to be second tier receivers. I think the running back's going to dry up really quick. And let's think back to last year. If Etienne and Najee Harris and Devonta Smith had declared last year, I think we'd really be down on this group, right? And that's going to happen. We're going to have guys go back to school. It's going to happen. Guys that we say, oh, they're definitely going to come out. They're going to be top 3 round picks. They're going to go back to school, and especially in a year like this. So to me, that's just it's not like that. It's not that 2022 is really bad. Like, I think 2022 is a better running back class as a whole in terms of depth. I think the receivers are not as good, but I think there still is some high-end receiver talent. And, I think the quarterback talent, we have Lawrence, we have Justin Fields. If Trey Lance goes back to school, this 2022 quarterback class, it may not have a Lawrence or a Fields, but they're going to be darn close. You're going to have 3, 4, 5 guys that have legitimate NFL talent. So I think it's comparable, and I think people just like to pump up the next draft class. It's what gets. If I tell you 2021 is terrible, no one's going to listen to me talk about the 2021 Devy guys. They don't want to hear about it, right? So we got to kind of pump it up a little bit. But I think 2020 was much better. I think 2021, I might end up selling those second, third round picks when the draft comes along, because I'm not completely sold.
Yeah, and so when you're on a big stage or on a football field, you have a hard time seeing up to the balcony because all you can see is what's right in front of you because of those lights. And I think that's really where we're at right now. People just want to acknowledge what's right in front of them because that's what gets clicks. That's what's going to get the likes. That's what's going to get the retweets on Twitter. So, this class is going to be pretty good, the 2021 class. But the 2022 class, man, I think the collective as a whole, if Trey Lance goes back to school, that quarterback collective, I want a lot of those 2022 first-round picks. There's going to be five really, really good quarterbacks, right? See, you got Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma. You have the USC kid, Keaton Slovis. You have Jaden Daniels at Arizona State. You'd have Trey Lance at North Dakota State. And then you have Shane's favorite at UNC. So, man, I don't know.
So it's just people are lazy, is what you are both essentially.
I think it's easier to know who's going to be in this upcoming class always than it is to look ahead a year. And that's the content driven area that we're in right now, right? People are going to put more clicks on what's more recent. That's always how it's going to be. So, look ahead, do your own research. There's going to be people that are just propping up this class and are going to tell you probably to sell all your 2022 picks and see if you can move up. But
and your take on that would be,
we at the Devy marketplace are only about accruing value, not losing it. So no, I'm going to want to trade second round picks this year for first rounders next year, because there's going to be people that are trying to say that so-and-so, that Tylan Wallace is going to be the future of whatever team he lands on, and he's going to be the future of the Miami Dolphins, bro. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take Spencer Rattler because you just made a shit pick. So I'm going to have an early pick in 2022 because you clearly can't handle your team correctly. So I'm just going to accrue that value, and I'm going to beat him in 2022 if he really wants to have my picks now.
Who else have you guys seen? Young guys. I know there was the little Kansas State kid had a pretty good game, went off.
Deuce.
Is there anyone else? Deuce Vaughn, which the guy that talks about poop all the time. You think I would have had that off the top of my head real quick? Is there any young guys that you guys have seen that you just want to, anyone that you just can't?
Seth McGowan.
Stop recording. Let's talk about him. Who the hell is Seth McGowan?
The Seth McGowan, freshman running back at Oklahoma. If you were a patron of the Devy Marketplace, then you knew about Seth McGowan long before anyone else did. We've been talking about Seth McGowan since Shane, June?
That's all you. Like, don't let me in there. It's all you, Seth McGowan.
Before
you hit, I didn't hit on that.
Before Kennedy Brooks opted out, we were like, okay, I'll take away the we. Yeah. I was saying that he was going to be the guy at Oklahoma. He was the best talent. And you've now seen 2 games from Oklahoma where he's clearly the top running back on that team. So I don't know why you wouldn't want him. Oklahoma's going to be playing on all the biggest stages week after week after week. And, whether he makes it to your NFL roster or not, doesn't matter. But you're drafting him now and trading for him now, he's just going to accrue value. And then the other guy that I'd probably mention, I'll leave some of the other names for Shane and go a little deeper. But I'm going to go to Pitt just because I know Shane loves when I talk about Pitt. And that's Jordan Addison. This last week, 7 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown, beating up on an atrocious defense of Louisville, which I don't know how they were ranked ever that high ever in their lives ever, in something other than basketball. He's just a really, really good player. He's doing everything for Pitt. He's clearly their top target there. He has had an early rapport with Kenny Pickett, and I think that's just going to continue this entire season. So Addison, keep him on the radar. He's going to just keep having really, really good weeks. And if you're playing DFS, he's incredibly cheap. If you're playing DFS college fantasy.
Shane, you got anybody?
No, I mean, I think Addison is a really good pick. I mean, he reminds me of Tyler Boyd, man. I mean, he kind of has that type of moxie and movement ability. So,
oh, hey, weird. Where did Tyler Boyd go to college?
Oh, it's like a perfect fit, right? He
went to Pitt too. Crazy.
What? I'll talk about one guy. Just go back to tight end because Kane loves us so much. But Arik Gilbert, the tight end for LSU, made an exceptional touchdown reception in that game. Kind of almost saved LSU in a way. He had 4 catches in the game, and he's a guy. So he's the highest rated tight end recruit ever on 24/7 Sports ever. So like that's high talent. And LSU was a team last year, did not use the tight end. I mean, this guy's just too good to keep off the field, even as a true freshman. I think he's someone that's that's really going to blow up. And when I've had tight end premium Devy drafts, he's a big target of mine because I think I have to have him. And then I'm going to go to TCU. Who didn't have a great outing in their first game. I was really hoping to see freshman running back Zach Evans. We didn't really get to see him play, but the freshman receiver that they have there really reminded me of Jalen Rieger last year. Quentin Johnston had a big touchdown. He had 2 catches, but he's kind of a bigger Rieger, 6'4", 193, was a 4-star recruit, kind of forgotten about in this class. I feel like a lot of people just kind of ignored him because he's going to TCU. But even with bad quarterback play, I mean, he really performed. So I think he's a name to just keep on the list and keep eyeing up. And, there's a lot of 5-star guys we're still waiting for from the Big Ten, or even, Bijan Robinson in Texas, the running back, had a strained back and he's taken a back seat. Like, these guys will come and, they'll get to play. But I think this freshman class that is going to start playing, honestly, it's one of the best freshman classes in terms of potential fantasy prospects I've seen in a long time. And that's really saying something.
So Shane didn't hit on 2 of them, and they're on the same team. So it's worth mentioning Jeff Sims and Jahmyr Gibbs, both from Georgia Tech. Incredible. They're going to be a pair to watch for a really long time, for at least 3 years before they go to the NFL. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think there's a real strong inkling that he could be my running back 2 right now in that class, because we just didn't get to see much of Tank at Auburn. But he and Bijan, I think, are really going to hold firm to the top of this class and just excel for a long time. But I think there's one bit of additional info that I wanted to share along with the Eric Gilbert pick that Shane mentioned. And that's if we look at a history of 5-star tight ends from Rivals, which is just the worst version of 24/7. It's these 6 guys. So in 2002, Mercedes Lewis, 1st-round pick. 2003, Greg Olson, 1st-round pick. 2005, Martellus Bennett, 2nd-round pick. 2008, Kyle Rudolph, 2nd-round pick. 2013, O.J. Howard, 1st-round pick. 2016, Isaac Nada, who's just not a good 7th-round pick. So
still a very good hit rate, though.
Right. So if you're talking, 83% hit rate, I'm not good at math, but I think I can do 5 divided by 6. And I think that's 83%. So if you're giving me those odds, I'm going to take them. Sure, I'm going to wait a little bit for Eric Gilbert to get to the NFL. But man, is he going to accrue value along the way, though.
Gentlemen, it is an honor and a privilege to talk to you. You both came in wonderful t-shirts. Shane is rocking the Scott Fishbowl, and I see Shane creeping in with the Rocco's Modern Life that just takes me back to the 90s, and that is just absolutely wonderful. Let's get out of here. You guys have been kick-ass. You guys are always kick-ass. If you don't go to the Devy Marketplace, shame on you, because you are out of all of the names. I have 3.5 pages of names, guys that I have written down who they are so I can go back and I can look, because I am a student forever at this game, and you guys are wonderful teachers, borderline professors. Go to the Devy Marketplace, and if you want to know how these guys, scout, They literally came out with episodes. If you go to the August 19th episode, they talk about how they scout quarterbacks, how they scout running backs. If you go to the September 2nd episode, how they scout wide receivers and how they scout tight ends. Now, they also had a bit on their worst phrases. I can only hope that Go Blue was one of them. No. But that's
if we want to talk about worst phrases, because I can,
Randy, hang up on him.
I'm already fired up.
Before he even finishes whatever the hell he's going to say.
No, you see, I told Shane this, and we had this whole thing, that my least favorite phrase is, it'll be in the last place you look. Right? If you're looking for something. Oh, it'll be in the last place you look. No shit. I'm not going to look again. Like, I have no incentive to keep looking for something I've found. Like, who does that? Like, it's
Jim
so
Harbaugh.
stupid.
Jim Harbaugh loses the remote, and then he finds it and then keeps looking for it.
Oh,
he
what
also
else does
reuses Q-tips. But, all right, gentlemen. Shane, tell them where they can find you. Tell them anything you got going on. Whatever you want to get off your chest, man.
Absolutely, yeah. So follow me on Twitter at Shane P. Hallam. If you check my pinned tweet, you can find that 2021 7-round mock on Draft Site. I'm working in the next 2 weeks. I should have a 7-round 2022 mock draft as well. So if you want to look at the future and kind of see that of all underclassmen in that class, I'll have 7 rounds. And then, yeah, that's it. Definitely subscribe to Devy Marketplace. Anywhere you listen to your podcasts, you can find it.
And if you want the inside scoop, you can go over to patreon.com/the Devy Marketplace. That's where you get, early episodes that look directly at, the 2021 rookie drafts. We did an entire 2-round rookie mock draft that's going to tell you basically those top players, barring some crazy, stupid draft price of some of these people, right? That's who's going to be there. So come check us out. We'll give you access to the chat, and you get to ask any questions about any deep prospect that you have, and Shane will probably have some info on him, like his eye color, his astrological sign, shoe size, all of that. And so he has all that information. So come check it out. You'll just constantly be able to learn, and you'll just be ahead on all the freshmen. And that's where you're going to get a ton of information that other people aren't going to give you.
Gentlemen, I really hope that Shane actually does know their eye color, but let us get out of here. On behalf of Shane, Kane, the homie Josh, who couldn't be here, the man, the myth, the legend that really is the backbone of the entire WarZone Factory Network, Randy behind the glass. I am Jerry Sinclair, and here at the Devy WarZone, we are just trying to make fantasy football a better place. I messed that up. Randy, why did I mess that? Randy, close it out. Close it out like a man, Randy.
And on behalf of Shane, Kane, Jerry, the absent Josh, and myself, here at the Devy WarZone, we are just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you back here in the month of October. Take care, guys.
That's why he does it. That's why he's the man.
I got you, babe. Hold on a minute. Got to end this broadcast.